Hello, everyone, and welcome to our Spiritist Psychology Study Group, The Inner Journey, Finding Your True Self. Here, we will explore life's big questions and connect with others on the path of self-discovery, guided by the teachings of Joanna de Angelis. This evening, Anahy will delve into the book In Search of the Truth by Joanna de Angelis, Chapter 10, Life and Death. We will have time for your questions and feel free to contribute with your insights, reflections, and questions. I now hand it over to Anahy. Over to you, Anahy.
Thank you, Fabrício. Hello, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here with you all. So I will just start sharing the PowerPoint presentation. And as we planned, we are going to stop right in the middle so we can all talk about and reflect upon what we are join us teachings and exchange ideas, and then we go back to the second part of the PowerPoint presentation, and then we go to Q&A, okay? Think
Yeah.
that's okay, right, Fabrício?
Yeah.
All right, so it's a wonderful book. I think it's 2009. As Fabrício said, this study is inspired by the spirit Joana de Angelis, and the books are psychographed by Divaldo Pereira Franco. And this beautiful book, In Search of the Truth, is one of the last books of Joanna's collected works, and it's really beautiful. After this one, we have the last one is Psychology of Gratitude. So, and I don't think has translation to English yet. But Sylvia and Bob made this beautiful translation for all of us of this part of chapter 10. So for those who have looked the text that Fabrizio put in the WhatsApp group, and please, if you haven't, go there because this is kind of the main ideas that I'm going to present in the PowerPoint presentation. But the beginning of the chapter is really, really beautiful. I can tell you as an MD that the way that Joanna describes, the physiological organization, our body, it's really beautiful, people. So she starts the chapter with this sentence: the physiological organization of a human being is one of the most magnificent pieces of genetic engineering ever devised, either before or since. So we are talking about robots, about artificial intelligence, about a lot of technology. But the body, our own body, is really, really magnificent and very, very complex. And as a scientist, I can tell you that we think we understand a lot of it, but we have to be really humble. We do like 6 years of medical school and then more 6 years of residency and specializations. But it's like more than 10 years to be a medical doctor. And I can tell you that with all the research that we have, with all the science that we have developed, there are mysteries in our own body that to this day, we don't understand. So we must be very humble and try to look at our bodies in a very special way. Okay, so that's the invitation that Joanna is bringing to us in this beautiful chapter. So, in the beginning, and I haven't put here because you have the text in the WhatsApp group, So in the beginning, she talks about, for instance, the circulatory system, right? It's just a spoiler for you that haven't read the text. Please do, because it's really beautiful. She says the circulatory system comprises between 150,000 and 100, between 150,000 and 190,000 kilometers of arteries, veins, and vessels arranged in a complex circuit. So, this is a tiny bit of the complexity of our own bodies, right? And she goes on, she talks about, our brain neurons. She talks about the oxygen that circulates. Of course, we know a lot of this, but in the way that she puts it, gives us the, this humbleness, this need for us to be really thankful for the mystery that is the body that we live inside, right? Our consciousness uses. So she talks about electrical impulses and so on, so forth, but it's in a magical and mysterious way that gives us a lot of respect for this physiological organization, okay? And then she goes on, this distinctive mechanism is triggered by specific energy emitting systems originating from the mind and circulating throughout the organism. The mind functions as an instrument for manifesting the spirit, regardless of whether it is consciously aware of its existence and significance. I'm just, okay. So just going to the previous PowerPoint. So she's talking about the physiological organization of human being as being this most magnificent piece of genetic engineering, okay, ever devised. And saying that this distinctive mechanism is triggered by a specific energy, okay? Energy emitting systems. So there are a lot of systems in our bodies that emit energy, and we know that, and they are very complex and they interact with each other. But she's saying that this energy emitting systems originating from the mind, so they are originated from the mind and circulating throughout the organism. All these systems that emit energy. Okay, so the mind function as an instrument for manifesting the spirit. We know that the mind, and we know this, and of course, a lot of biologists, medical personnel, and other people that study the body and its functioning, they know that the mind has a lot of influence in the body, right? And Joanna is saying that the mind functions as an instrument for manifesting the spirit. Okay, so the spirit is manifesting here in this dimension through the mind, and the mind is affecting the body, right? Regardless of whether it is consciously aware, the spirit or the mind actually, of its existence and significance. Okay, so the mind that is affecting the body, okay, that's behind all this physiological organization. Like we have a psychosomatic medicine, people that study this kind of thing, and we know through a lot of situations, health situations. We have been talking here in some previous meeting about the placebo effect. The placebo effect is if I believe that I'm having the medicine that is going to cure me, I can be having, for instance, and digesting a sugar pill, for instance, and thinking that it's a medicine and then it's going to cure me. That's the placebo effect. That many colleagues unfortunately say, oh, that's just a placebo effect. But what is the placebo effect? So it's the mind functioning as a in manifesting, functioning in influencing the body and functioning as an instrument for manifesting the spirit. Okay, so the consciousness that is behind all the our action here in the world, our learning process here in the world. So in this physical dimension. So let's go ahead and see a little bit more. So Joanna says, although the body is resilient against changes in altitude, for instance, and physical impact, it remains susceptible to bacteria and viruses, for instance. These tiny, tiny living organisms, at least bacteria, because the viruses, they are kind of living when they are inside of us, right? So Joanna says these pathogens are typically managed by the immune system. However, when the immune system becomes compromised, vulnerability increases. And we know that the immune system is very much influenced by our mind, our emotions, the way that we perceive the world, and the challenge that we go undergo. Actually, there is like kind of an epidemic. I don't know if we could say epidemic in medical terms, but it's just the image, okay, the metaphor of disease of the immune systems, autoimmune disease these days. And we know that we are all around the globe under a lot of stress. So, of course, we are going to have a lot of diseases like autoimmune diseases, diseases of our immune systems. Okay. So, that is because all authority is rooted in the spirit, which energizes and guides the physiological organization through our minds, because mind is pretty much connected to this experience. There is we kind of have a division in spiritualists and spiritist knowledge of a lot of bodies that we have, not only the physical body, but we are going to see a little bit more about this. And the mental body is one of the bodies, the emotional body, right? So it's all subtle bodies that are here with us in this manifestation of our spirit in the material world. So that is because all authority is rooted in the spirit, which energizes and guides the physiological organization, influencing both its success and potential disorganization. Although the spirit may not always recognize the significance of its resources, especially when we are here incarnated, or reincarnated, we should say, and with a personality, for instance, if I have difficulty, and we are talking about here also the ego and the self, as Joanna says, the self, capital S, Jung's concept of the self, is our higher self, our spirit, but it's here in a body, right? And it's here manifesting itself through the mind, and the mind is influenced by everything that we live here. So it's very complex, but we can understand if we think about ourselves, for instance, and our development and everything that we have been discussing about Joanna's proposal of spiritist psychology together with Jung's complex psychology. So let's go back to the test. So Joanna says, although the spirit may not always recognize the significance of its resources when incarnated, at least, It is endowed with the capacity to achieve greatness, ultimately transcending ignorance and attaining immortality. Okay, because here, when we are incarnated in a personality with all the complexes, like the inner child, like the mother complex, the father complex, with everything that we have lived, with a lot of old patterns that we have lived manifesting in this life through our complexes, right? So we are, and also we kind of have no exact memory, only indirect memory, right? But not exactly memory of what we have been doing in previous lives, because we are here, we have to express ourselves through a brain, through a mind, through a personality with its traumas and difficulties. So we kind of forget and have difficulty to really connect to our higher selves when we are here. So, and especially, for instance, this year that we are talking about inner journey and finding our true self. So, really finding this voice with capital V inside of ourselves through intuitions, through talking about these issues that Joanna is asking us to do, to dreams, to meditations, right? So this is very, very important because our spirit, at least the part of our spirit that is manifesting here, that's what Joanna is talking about, not always recognize the significance of its resources. We think many times, especially when we are undergoing a crisis, when we are depressed, or when we are with a lot of anxieties, or suffering some kind of disease, for instance, we have difficulty to recognize the significance, John is saying, of our own resources, our spiritual resources, and all the capacity to achieve greatness. And of course, if we are in contact with this knowledge that is within ourselves, then we would, as much as we can be in contact with this knowledge, then it would be easier to, even in day by day life, to transcend ignorance and attain the knowledge and the certainty of immortality. Because we keep looking outside of us. But Joanna is asking us all the time to look inside of us to this knowledge that it's in our spirit, right? So she says that this extraordinary machine that compares to no other was, however, worked by the divine laws over 2 billion years approximately, since the emergence of the first sugar molecules in the intimacy of the abyssal oceanic waters, advancing to the present day with the most sophisticated electrical and electronic equipment, so that through it the spirit can develop his inner God, the imago Dei in Jung's concept, our archetype of unity, of wholeness, okay? Singing the glories of God. Look how beautiful, of creation, of the Creator. So within this unique apparatus are mechanisms responsible for conveying intelligence, emotion, and various inclinations, all regulated by the perispirit in accordance with the law of cause and effect. These mechanisms function as intended by the divinity, serving as a refined envelope for the soul or spirit. The blessing of a physical body, even with its limitations, lies in its capacity to support spiritual development, a benefit often overlooked. The body serves the requirements of its spiritual counterpart, which is ultimately accountable for how it manifests within the realm of tangible forms. Demonstrating appropriate respect and making suitable contributions to ensure that intended objectives are fulfilled is a prudent responsibility for individuals during their pilgrimage on earth. So we should demonstrate appropriate respect and make suitable contributions, okay, for our body to ensure that the intended objectives of this life, as Jung says, our personal myth, our, sacred story, what our spirit decided with mentors in the spiritual realms to learn, to undergo, so that we can evolve. So, this life, every life is precious for the purpose of evolution, right? So, Joanna says, and in order to safeguard oneself from internal conflicts arising from deeply ingrained behaviors, it is essential to cultivate a sense of responsibility towards one's physical well being. This duty supports personal development, healing, and progress in pursuit of self realization and individuation. So we must safeguard, ourselves from internal conflicts arising from deeply ingrained behaviors. Joanna talks a lot, and by now you know this word that she uses a lot, atavisms, right? Behaviors deeply ingrained in our spiritual development, things that we feel guilty about in our spiritual past, mistakes that we have made, people that we made to suffer, and then now evolving, we know, oops, that was not, okay, what I did in past lives. So I ask mentors and guides, guardian angels, as you want to call, for another opportunity. And by the mercy of the creation, we are given another opportunity. So every life, every experience is precious for our spiritual development. And that's what Joanna is asking us to pay attention, okay? And we need to cultivate a sense of responsibility, she says, towards our own physical well being, because this body is what we have to live this precious life. As Jung said when he was old, I think it was a couple of years before he died, he said that he understood that living this life is the path to the unfathomable that we call divine. Okay, so to understand, to learn about God, to learn about ourselves, that's very precious, this opportunity. So we must take care of our bodies. Then I brought to you, and then I will some questions so that we can stop the PowerPoint presentation and have some conversation as we, Fabricio and I and all of you decided. For people that maybe is watching this through Burnout Society YouTube channel and maybe has some difficulty understanding the perispirit. So in the Spirits book by Allan Kardec, his first book, he asks in question 93, he asks the spirits, is the spirit per se without a covering, or as some insist, is it surrounded by some kind of substance? That's people in the middle of the 19th century. And then the spirits say, The spirit is surrounded by a substance that might look vaporous to you, but which is still quite dense to us. Nevertheless, it is sufficiently vaporous to be able to raise itself up into the air and travel to wherever it wants to go. And so pay attention. Then the comments by Allan Kardec. He says he was a professor, he was a scientist, so he makes this analogy. As a fruit seed is surrounded by the perisperm, the spirit per se is surrounded by an envelope, which by comparison may be called the perispirit. Okay, so that's Kardec giving us the concept and the word perispirit. Then in question 94, he asks the spirits, where does the spirit get this semi-material envelope? Look, pay attention to that, from each globe's own universal fluid. Each globe's own universal fluid. That is why the perispirit is not the same on all worlds. In passing from one world to another, spirits change their envelope, just as you change your clothes. That's beautiful. I strongly recommend that people go to the Spirit's book to see these questions where Allan Kardec asks the spirits about the subtle body that we talk as in the Eastern traditions, they say subtle body. And Kardec gives us this word perispirit. But I think it's very important to pay attention because we are talking about unidentified flying objects these days, and it's such a big thing all over, and what's going on interstellar objects in our solar system. And no, but our science is saying that there's no possibility of lives in other globes. And that's in the 19th century. The spirits telling Kardec that from each globe's own universal fluid is from where the spirit gets this semi-material envelope. Okay, because that is why the perispirit is not the same on all worlds, because the worlds have different chemical and physics, chemical substance physics, and so on and so forth, right? So of course the perispirit is going to change from world to world. And then I brought to you, I don't think there's translation to English yet, but we have so many wonderful books. This is by the author Zalmino Zimmerman, that I think he was a judge. I think he has already passed away. And he made, forgot to put to you the image, so sorry, but I'll just show to you. That's the book, okay? And that's really huge. He puts everything that we know, a lot of things, for instance, that we know by now about the perispirit. It's from, I think it's from the end of last century. Yes, no, with the beginning of this one, 2002, the book. So Zalmino Zimmerman is going to say the primary function of the perispirit is to serve as an instrument for the soul in its interaction with the spiritual and physical worlds. An energetic projection of the soul. Look how beautiful. An energetic projection of the soul. It embodies the matrix cosmic energy. Wow. It embodies the matrix cosmic energy, consolidating a physical structure that always reflecting the source, our spirit, right? Serves as its connecting element with the surrounding environment so that it can not only act upon our external environment, influencing it, but also receive influence from it in a system of exchanges and benefits in its glorious evolutionary journey. Look how wonderful, how beautiful, and how complex we each one of us are actually. Just talking about the perispirit, the subtle body. So Zalmina says the perispirit, the imperishable body of the soul, serves its individualization and identification. The soul is unique and differentiated, and the perispirit as its envelope, or more specifically, its perennial body, shows it, reflecting it, ensuring its exclusive identity. However, this is not an identity that only concerns peripheral characteristics. Rather, it refers to its own history, to its particular evolutionary characteristics. In this context, the memory factor reflected on the perispiritual screen emerges as one of the most important, ensuring the continuity of a psychic life at different existential levels, and thus marking the identity of the soul. I know that maybe this is kind of wow, what is Anahy talking about? But I know that many of you already know about the perispirit, okay? But I wanted to bring this beautiful summary by Zalmino Zimmerman. This is like only one or two paragraphs of his beautiful book for us to understand what Joanna is asking us to pay attention, right? That our perispirit is also an achievement of our spirit, as this opportunity of this life, of having this life, this personality, okay, of somehow having our spiritual memory shortened by the reincarnation, because we are reincarnating in a material dimension and we have to use our brains. So a lot of people, I have heard a lot of things that people look like a little paranoid. Oh, we are stuck here. It's a prison. It's a matrix, like the movie Matrix. And it's a prison. No, it's not a prison. It's a blessing. And it's because of evolution, because we are evolving. And of course, you go to, and I think a lot of people that are talking about this have never read the Spirit's book. And maybe one of the reasons is that because the Spirit's book makes us very humble, makes us very, very grateful to the creation that we are able to have this opportunity to reincarnate here. So we are not stuck in a prison. We are here because we are learning. It's as Spiritist knowledge say, it's like a big school, right? I don't know. It's not. I think Fabrizio elementary school, but I think we are more like finishing school, okay, and we are applying to university, okay, probably. So we have passed high school because we are talking about all of this. But don't fool yourselves. I think it's a very concrete thing to think that we are here because we are imprisoned in a matrix. We have created this reality, people, because we need it. We need the material dimension so our spirit can evolve. We need these challenges, right? Because we are learning with them. And so the perispirit is the imperishable body of the soul. So it's a blessing that we have a perispirit that is going to be influenced by the memory factors. See in the bottom of this paragraph that will all our memories of past lives, everything that we have done. A lot of people that undergo near death experience say that it's like a screen, it's not a judgment or whatever. Their own consciousness expanded, have a kind of screen when where everything of their lives passed like in a second. Look at the expansion of consciousness right after death to a lot of people that are, of course, in this condition because have done their homework and have evolved here spiritually in this life. So what happens is that, okay, all our memories are there in our perispirit, okay? And look what Domino says. This ensures the continuity of psychic life at different existential levels and thus marks the identity of our souls. I think that's so beautiful. Okay, so I'll just stop here so that we can discuss a little bit, right, Fabrizio, as we plan, and then go back to the last PowerPoint.
Thank you, Anahy. So if anyone wants to interact with the group, please raise your Zoom hands and share your insights with us, please.
I was going to ask Sylvia if no one is going. So let's start because I know Sylvia knows a lot about André Luiz books. And Sylvia has a beautiful memory that it's not only from this life, Sylvia, because then you are cheating. Probably you have already read all the books in a past life. Don't cheat on us.
No, no.
So,
No, I was just
so
going to say the explanation in the book Missionaries of Light, which is the third book of
yeah.
the collection. When he's talking about the reincarnation of Sigismundo, he explains about the body, which is very similar to what Joanna says here, and about the perispirit. I mean, this book is really important, the one you were quoting. And I think when he says, he follows the development of the spirit, it means that our perispirit, as we progress spiritually and going towards our individuation and get to our higher self, it becomes lighter, because it's dense, but it's material. So as we evolve spiritually, the perispirit, this physical, this body, becomes much light until it almost disappears when you become pure light. So it is a reflex, and also a lot of traumas and everything is kept on the perispirit from life to life. And if I may say something here, sometimes when I work with past life people, we have some problems in they don't have a memory, sort of a memory of a trauma that happened, but the body remembers. And sometimes when you treat the body, um, the person have a reaction, just like people who give massage or osteopathy and things like that. The body will remember, because of course is everything kept in the spiritual body. That's why a lot of people will cry when they have massages and things like that. So this is really interesting and important, and the way Joanna explains it makes it so much clearer, doesn't it? It's wonderful.
Yes, and I was going to ask you guys before giving to Tanya, um, don't you dream? And what have you seen, Sylvia, with people that you treat? Don't you have had, for instance, in all of you, dreams where you are flying, for instance? when we're kind of flying and we see the ground, and sometimes people even feel something in their stomach, and their tongue is like, wow, I'm up. So are kind of afraid. Have you seen that in the dreams of your patients?
Yes, I have worked with one actually specifically that she always had this dream, was repetitive dream. And that's how I work with her through the dream. And she always had a dream that she was walking in this road, kind of country road, and she would start flying. But whenever she got wherever she was going to go, she would wake up and always sweating and really feeling. And then eventually, when I did work with her, I made her go through and see what happened. And then we found the life, what it was, which was really somebody had killed her actually with her own hair. She had very long hair, and they actually strangled her. So, and it was a very transformative thing for the person because she would never wear anything with a high neck, nothing, scarves or necklace or anything. And one day it was like 8 o'clock in the morning. She called me and she said, "Oh my God, I woke up I didn't sleep with my, she would never sleep with her doors locked. And she started wearing, you know, necklaces and clothes that would come cover her neck. And I've seen other people as well having, but they always wake before they get to the trauma. So the work is to work for them to find it. And it can be very healing. It's wonderful. And because
Good.
we do have a little understanding about the spirit and the reaction, it makes it easier for us to work with people like that, I think.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Thank you, Silvia. I think Fabrizio Tania wants to talk.
Yeah. Over to you, Tony.
Hi. Just something that came to mind there, talking about the how the perispirit is made of the the fluids or the energy of the particular planet, and it it triggered a memory of many years ago reading Memories, Dreams, and Reflections by Jung, where he had a near-death experience, and he was starting this process of, it seemed like almost stripping away, right, just when you were speaking there, that it was like almost stripping away the spirit body, the perispirit. But then it went into reverse, but that it was a very challenging experience for him to start molting or removing that um those energies from his spirit. It was a very strong description that he gave of that experience.
Yes, thank you, Tanya. Exactly. And when we go to the spirits book, the spirits tell Kardec about the like a classification of the development of the spirits, like they divide in three, and they say, of course, it's just for us to have an idea, but of course, there it's you cannot have limits in the evolution of the spirit. But they say basically the very evolved, the pure spirits, right? And then the good spirits in the middle that are really want to be good and do good deeds, things like that. And then the very uh, not exactly evil, but sometimes they are mischievous and things like that. But the spirits that are not developed yet, let's say like this. So three groups of spirits just to make you know, I think they were trying to tell Kardec in the 19th century in a very in a very simple way that we all could understand. But Tanya, what you said, I'm thinking about the pure spirits, and we know that as in very high dimensions, you don't need the subtle body anymore. I think that's what you were talking about. Yeah, because he gives this. he gives this idea that and compares the perispirit that clothes, right? That you, because Kardec also asked, well, but when we are in another world, another globe, with a certain perispirit, and then if we incarnate in this earth, do we change the perispirit? And he said, yes, you have to use the clothes that is suitable for, your dimension. So you are going to have to change the perispirit in a sense. And I think what Jung was, I'm trying to remember his near-death experience, that it's beautiful. He saw the globe before even we went, before the Russians went, put the first man around the globe. So Jung saw the globe and saw the colors, and it's all described. So you cannot question that the non-locality of the consciousness with because it's all registered. So it's some years previous to his death. But he goes, Tony, I think you're talking about that part. I have read for some years ago, but he's going to that path where he sees a temple. He's leaving the globe and going in a direction to a temple where he sees a man meditating. Is that part when he feels that he doesn't have a body anymore? I don't know if that's the part that you are talking about.
Can't remember that. I don't remember that level of detail. I just remember that it was like he was derobing, that he was
Yeah,
removing this clo he'd left the physical, but he was now removing this other layer of energy body,
yes,
shall we say, and that it was very
yes. Yeah, it was great, and um, but he doesn't describe exactly, as I remember, if he could look to his body and see his, that he was there, arms and legs and things like that. I don't think he describes, but he describes, as you say, the idea of getting rid of the heaviness, let's say, of earth. Yes, it was something like that. And as he getting near that temple in a rock or something like that in space, and he saw that he wanted to go inside, but I think he had an idea that if he went inside, he wouldn't come back. And then he sees his doctor, a light or something coming from Earth, getting near him. And then when he gets near him, he sees his doctor. He recognizes his doctor. So, of course, the doctor was in the perispirit, in the subtle body, right? And it was a spiritual meeting. And the doctor said, you need to come back. It's not your time. And then when the doctor says, then he's inside the body and really mad and suffering a lot of pain and things like that. Well, it was not his time. He had to write Memory, Dreams, Reflections
Yeah,
and
it was
tell
our
us
benefit.
about the new. Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Tanya. Anyone else? Should we go back to the PowerPoint or Fabricio?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so I'll just share again.
Sorry,
Just
can
one
I?
second. Anna Sinclair?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I was a
Oh,
bit slow. I was a bit slow. I just wanted to say, I know that you were talking before, like some people dramatize that, oh, we're in a prison, blah, blah, blah. And then some people talk of the body like that as well. The body is a prison, or they talk about the body is a source of their downfall. They blame the body for the impulses that come from the spirit, but they blame the body. And it's quite interesting because when you read Joanne and then you start saying the body is your blessed instrument, it's your blessed tool to be here and to interact with the world. So it brings back the responsibility to yourself, to your spirit. I mean, to your spirit. You are the spirit, that you are the director of this situation. And then the relationship with the body changes rather than being this fight of like, oh, like if the body was something separate that you're fighting because it's hungry or because it does this or it has these impulses. No, this is me. The body is just the tool that reflects me, and you can really change the way you relate to your body. And like she says, whether no matter how your body presents, even if it's all distorted and malfunctioning on different levels, like, oh, everybody has something that doesn't work very well, and rather be angry with it. Oh, because why do I have this hip that needs a hip replacement? No, look how interesting. You just change and say, okay, let me see, how can I help your body? And I think for me, that is a very practical and helpful way that Joanna helps us to look at ourselves and our relationship with our body to make it harmonious in the sense of working together so that we can have the best results. I think that for me, it was something that impacted me.
Thank you, and me too, by the way, because I'm very worried with autoimmune stuff because I have had some problems and talking to the body, right? And really having this respect that Joanna is something that we all have to learn. We think we respect, we don't drink alcohol, we don't do this and that. But if we are angry with the body, as you said, right, and or feeling upset by something, that's the energy that we are. It's like a conversation that is not very nice, right? So I totally agree with you that we should talk to the body in meditation and prayers and really respect it. Thank you, Anne. So I'll start sharing here so we can go to the last part. So we were here in the Zalmina Zimmerman. Oops. Okay. So then back to Joanna. She says, when the self, capital S, possesses awareness of its characteristics, it becomes better equipped to foster the harmony required to fulfill its roles related to both mortality and immortality, as Anne was saying just now. This process involves overcoming the constraints imposed by the shadow, which represents previously uncertain paths and necessitates the use of understanding to achieve complete harmony. The body should be regarded as a valuable vessel provided by life to the spirit. This enables the development of inherent values, much like fertile soil nurtures a seed until it fulfills its intended purpose. Look how beautiful the image. Similarly, it is essential to nurture this intelligent seed, safeguarding it from pests and environmental hazards that could compromise its survival and growth. Considering this, the greatest dangers are internal. The lingering moral imperfections of primitivism that keep the true self imprisoned and force it to repeat the actions that once brought unhappiness. So we make our own prisons. I think this is very important. It's not someone else, not, other people from any dimensions. We make our own prisons, if you want to say, with our moral imperfections, primitivisms, right, that keep the true self imprisoned. So who we really are, and force it to repeat the actions that once brought unhappiness. We could say like Freudian concept of repeating the traumas, right? But even from past lives, as Silvia was giving us the example. So the pursuit of self-knowledge, of identifying the possibilities that concern oneself, is an unavoidable commitment for all who awaken to lucid consciousness in order to reach the goal of existence, which is the state of sukha, bliss in Sanskrit. Okay? In situations involving transfer or avoidance of responsibility, individuals may perceive threats from external adversaries who are allegedly pursuing strategies of aggression and destruction. However, says Joanna, such efforts are unlikely to succeed if the targeted party maintains mental clarity, and the targeted party ourselves, because she's talking like a paranoid mechanism when I project onto others threats, right? Because she's talking about external adversaries who are allegedly pursuing strategies of aggression and destruction. Of course, they can be real, but Joanna says that, however, such efforts are unlikely to succeed if the targeted party maintains mental clarity, if we maintain mental clarity, and uphold our moral values within an environment of harmony. Through consistent self awareness and ongoing personal growth along the developing continuum of evolution, external threats are substantially reduced and become ineffective in causing harm. Wow. Maybe we have to talk about that when I finish the PowerPoint presentation. Because these days, of course, with a lot of, problematic situations around the globe, if we connect if we tune in this kind of threats, leaving our own harmony, our meditations, our prayers, then of course it will, or these challenges are going to affect us and cause us harm even in the body, cortisol and lots of hormones of stresses and everything that happens in our body. But Joanna is calling us to consistent self-awareness and ongoing personal growth, okay, as a way to deal with even with external threats, because she's saying that then they are substantially reduced and become ineffective in causing harm. For this reason, any harmful event that impacts this important tool for growth, our bodies, represents serious harm, requiring renewal through physical rebirth and a bodily affected by the individual's own mistakes. Okay. The extreme religious views of the past, John is saying, have viewed the physical body as an adversary, especially in relation to its natural impulses and needs. These have led to practice aimed at suppressing bodily desires by the use of punishments, for instance, in the past. These measures sought to diminish the body's will, motivated by misguided attempts to liberate the individual from temptations. Look at that. Rather than fostering understanding, these approaches preferred ignorance, forbidding any effort to comprehend the body's role. They fail to recognize that desires and carnal appeals are not inherently negative, but instead reflect the current state of the spirit as it manifests in material form. So, carnal appeals and desires are not inherently negative, but instead reflect the current stage of the spirit as it manifests in material form. It is not the body influencing the spirit, but rather the spirit expressing itself through the body. I think Fabrizio has put this sentence in the WhatsApp group, right, Fabrizio? Beautiful. Love for the gentle and serene donkey, as referred by the Saint of Assisi, who regarded it as the animal he rode, represents an important commitment to its conservation and well being, offering valuable contributions to its continued preservation and harmony. And before we stop the PowerPoint presentation, I brought to you a sentence by Dr. Marlene Nobre. She was the founder of the Spiritist Medical Association of Brazil, which I represent here in this partnership with the Bournemouth Society. And she said this in 1997 in a congress. She says, a single cell, in order to function, needs 2,000 specific enzymes. 2,000 people, specific enzymes, a single cell. Currently, scientists have discovered that the orderly and perfect assembly of 1,000 of these enzymes over billions of years represents, in fact, a statistical improbability. 0.1 raised to the power of 1,000. We can only acknowledge the existence of an underlying ordering phenomenon that inevitably leads to the emergence of life. I think this is so beautiful and gives us the idea of the blessings that we all have of being here in this life, of having this body with this complexity that we are in, this mystery that we are only started to uncover. So I'll stop the PowerPoint presentation so we can have some more time.
Any contributions and insights? Please raise your hands.
I'd just like to say, I'm sorry I didn't raise the hand, that Marlene Nobre was also the founder of the International Association, medical, not
Yes,
only Brazilian one, but there is an
yes,
international.
yes.
Sorry.
Thank you. Yes, of course, the international. She and all of you in Europe and I think in the United States, I'm not quite sure, but I think so. Yeah, because there's a Spiritist Medical Association in the United States, made such wonderful congresses. And I remember she once called, we were talking about Rupert Sheldrake, right, Anna? The other day, and he has been, I think Anne or Sylvia were there. We know that he has been in some congress that she helped to put together, different scientists. So that's, and we were talking about morphogenetic fields, that it's the hypothesis of Rupert Sheldrake, and has everything to do with for instance, the perispirit, considering us in the way that our body is organized. Thank you, Anna. She has done so many things that we forget all of the immense help. And it was Chico Xavier that called her when she was a medical student, and she practiced, and her mediumship blossomed with Chico Xavier. So it was, and also Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, that is considered the doctor of the poor, and that really was the anchor of spiritists here in the, I think, at the end of the 19th century in Brazil, kind of. And she used to have this possibility to, through her mediumship, to talk to him. And also that was good that Anna remember this because I don't know if everybody knows the story, but she told us many times, and so she was pretty close to Chico Xavier, and she was like trained by him. And she and her husband, they had two or three boys, I think, in that time. It was in the second half of last century. I think she founded the first was the São Paulo, the Spiritist Medical Association, right? I think it's in the end of the 80s or something like that. And it's previously we were talking about suffering last year, and she had a loss because she was very, very close to her husband, and he died, and so she was mourning him terribly. And then the spirit of Dr. Bezerra de Menezes appears to her, and he would appear frequently to Chico Xavier, even, we know that. So he appears to her and said, well, you can, she told us, of course, he said many other things, but what he said to her concerning the Spiritist Medical Associations, that we respect your mourning, we know that you are suffering, you can go on, right? And I think that was sometime, of course, after the passing of her husband. But you have work to do. You have a commitment to create the Spiritist medical associations. And it's an understanding. It was born in and it was given to Dr. Bezerra de Menezes, this task that he gives to Dr. Marlene Nobre, that it was the Christ that said that we should start in science, not only medical personnel, but anyone, because we are all doctors, let's say, or medical therapeutic people, because therapy is to take care of the soul. So we are all, and in the future, I'm quite sure for everything that we have been talking today, that we are going to be able to heal ourselves, really, when we understand ourselves, and we are going to be in the regenerated world, we are going to be much less sick, you know, because we are going to understand how we work, and we are going to feel less emotions like rage, like sadness, things like that. So she went to work. She used her crisis, her mourning, her deep loss to serve others. And she inspired many of us. And I know she is still inspiring a lot. And Dr. Bezerra de Menezes is also putting everyone together. A lot of research in Brazil in the medical field, top quality research, has been made through inspiration of Chico Xavier's books by André Luiz, by Dr. Marlene Nobre, and so many wonderful colleagues that have made this connection. Now, of course, we have everything to thank to Chico Xavier and Divaldo Franco for their, decades of work to be able to psychograph such wonderful books. Thank you, Anna, to remind me of that. I think Anne wants to say something else.
Yeah, Anna, you're mute.
Yeah, if nobody else does, because I am aware that I tend to talk. But I was just saying that it was a synchronicity because I watched a talk by Rupert Sheldrake this morning when I was having breakfast on YouTube, which is called The Evolution of Telepathy. And he
Me
talks
too,
about,
Anne.
oh,
Me
there's
too. Yeah. See, we are totally connected.
so
It's the
interesting.
same.
So interesting. And also like when he's talking about the morphological fields and how is it that telepathy can be this field thing that we are inserted in a field that is the distances doesn't matter, but the impulse of love or the emotional connection does matter, and so on and so on. But he also, in that talk, which I found really interesting and fun to listen to, he talks about the problem of researchers not getting funding and not being able sometimes to do research into psychical topics because of the ideology, the materialistic ideology, which still permeates a lot of the universities, and that he himself had been in that same framework of being of atheism and materialism, and that they are so skeptical that they don't even want to see the evidence, which is very unscientific. But this is how they behave, and he is there in the middle of them. And this is something that Dr. Marlene, and when you're talking about that slide, this is what she used to talk about, the difficulty. The people don't want to even think about the possibility or to see any evidence. They just say, no, that is unscientific, unrational, supernatural, blah, blah, blah. These things, it's folklore and superstition. I said, no, but analyze and look at it. And it's really interesting because from the time of Kardec, he does his work of analyzing the events, as so many others, trying to do it in a scientific way. Here we are almost 200 years later, and still that framework in the official science is very embedded until today. But I can see that there are cracks in the system, that things start to improve. Because like Sheldrick was saying, oh, somebody could do a PhD on this or do a PhD on that, on how the babies communicate with their mothers, and uh, how people communicate with their dog, their cat, all these kind of things. So interesting. And he said, but nobody wants to fund it or allow these kind of PhDs because it's non-scientific. And I just thought it was a synchronicity, because you talked about him, and I'd seen this video in the morning, but also I connected him so much to Dr. Marlene in this difficulty of breaking through this very, well, I know Portuguese use the word paradigm, but I think like more like this framework, so still solid, but starting to crack a bit. I have hope, I have great hope, but I find it really interesting. So I just want to share that.
Thank you so much. It's it's in the YouTube, and it also, I think it's yesterday or today, so it's a synchronicity, and it's a telepathy because we are connected, all of us. But I have good news for you. I think Fabricio has put in the WhatsApp group next month, because of all this inspiration, for the first time in since we had this idea, and it was here in Brazil that we had to put together all the groups of psychologists and psychiatrists that are studying consciousness, so, and spirituality and religion, all of that. So we are having the global summit, that is the sixth global summit, and in Harvard in Boston. And it's more than, I think, 170 works and researches. And I'm going to be there presenting my research that we have here, a group from the Brazilian Jungian Association, that we have kind of almost 500 cases of collected of anomalous experiences that are the spiritual experiences. So it's great data, and it's analyzing them through the lens of the complex psychology of Jung. So we are getting there, and we are getting there because of all the beautiful people, including in the UK, that we have the colleagues that in the Royal College of Psychiatrists, they started this special interest group of spirituality, religion, and mental health, something like that. And you guys in the UK were the first in the world to have a special interest group in a psychiatrist association. So we are getting there, but of course we are getting there. Why? Because of all the people that made this effort, including Rupert Sheldrake, because he said, I saw a documentary of his life, he had a lot of rejection from his colleagues at Cambridge University at that time. I think it was in the 90s or something, 80s. So, but we have to, if we have this, as Joanna said, if we know that we are here for a purpose, that we know that this opportunity is so beautiful. What happened with Anne and myself here, that we were totally connected, seeing the same. What's the odds, right? Different continents and the same podcast in the YouTube and all the stuff, and thinking the same thing. This, we are totally tuned in because of Fabrizio and everybody else, and Bob and everybody, Andres, and because of Sylvia. So we are different groups, but we are partners. We get together and we tune into this frequency of love and light. I always remember that you said, for me, Joanna is a light teacher. And what light teacher, right? We are, we are so thankful. So we are getting there. I think Sylvia wants to thank so much, and Sylvia wants to say something.
No, it's very interesting. I have actually met him because I went to this work done by Dr. Fennick, and Rupert Sheldrake was there, so I had the opportunity to talk to him, which was really nice. But I think we have here a medical association as well, which Dr. Marlene helped us to create. It's not very active at the moment because there's a lot of problems. Things, but we do have something that have here, don't we, Fabrizio? Fabrizio and I, we're part of that, and trying to follow, the recommendations of Dr. Marlene. And I worked with her for a long time because she, during the congresses that she came here and everything. So I did a lot of translations of the congress and things. And we had incredible and a great number of scientists that were, fighting to get the word across, and it's still a bit difficult, but it's opening up because now there is even, I was reading the other day in Scientific, that now they have found, scientists have discovered that consciousness is actually outside of the body, is not stuck on the brain. And they call it, and what we call spirit, they are now calling consciousness. But it's a beginning, it's an opening, isn't it? Because also, I mean, here in England, um, this movement within the psychiatric movement here happened actually, it began in the 50s with Dr. Dennis Kelsey. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. He was a psychiatrist, member of the Royal College of Psychiatrists, and his wife was a very famous medium who had memories of her past lives. And he already, clients that he had problems with, that he knew wasn't only psychiatric, he would take to her so she would help him with the thing. And then Dr. Powell and Dr. Fennick and Sanderson, which we worked with them for a long time, they started this movement within the psychiatric college or psychiatry, Royal
One thing
Psychiatry.
that we cannot forget, Sylvia, Sir Arthur Conan Doyle.
Oh, of course, yes,
He was the
absolutely.
father of the spiritualist movement, I think, in the UK, right? He was the also. I love the guy. I don't know if you have channeled him or whatever, but I think it's so wonderful also because the different cultures have, like Allan Kardec in France, then you have Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in England. So the message is going to come to all of us. But I brought to you in the end of this talk, I thought it was really beautiful. Um, there is a mystical person here. I brought to you the little birds by the sea last year, I think, remember? So this is a mystical guy that makes, he's not a spiritist, but he makes, has already passed away, has a community very like in Brazil, that it's a mixture of many religions, but he is very inspired. And do you want to finish, Sylvia, or is that okay? Is that okay? Okay, I wanted to
And
read. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I will
Fabrizio.
just because I think you're gonna do the close remarks. I think Tanya share with us something really interesting here on the chat, which is talking about what you guys have been referring to. Is a quote from the Spirit's book, and it's a question 781. And the question is, do human beings have the power to halt process progress? And the answer was no, but they can hamper it sometimes. A. What should we think of those who attempt to halt progress and make the human race regress? Progress is a condition of human nature and no one can prevent it. It is a living force that bad laws might hamper but not smoother. Um, when these laws become incompatible, progress breaks them down and continue to do so until the laws of humankind match divine justice, which wills the best for everyone, and until all laws made by the strong to the detriment of the weak are eradicated. I think you guys been talking about this, right?
Beautiful. Yes. Well, Isabel wants to say something.
Yes, I would like to ask if you know the Bial Foundation.
Yeah, in Portugal.
You speak about doctors and so on, and this is a pharmaceutical company, no? Uh, with a mission to foster scientific study of the human being from both physical and spiritual perspectives. It is
Yeah.
managed by representatives from both institutions, and particularly in the field of neuroscience. I'm reading from the and the parapsychology research, aiming to stimulate new research that benefits people, improves health, and attains new knowledge. We have from behind and beyond the brain. It's a forum, and it was also a series on TV. Okay, but I think this is we need money to do things, no? And it was created in 1994. mm? But it goes slowly but steady, I think. Things are getting there. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I forgot about the Bio Foundation. There's I think the two big foundations that help scientific works. They are very rigorous in making this evaluation, and also Templeton Foundation in the United States. I think the two main foundations that that are helping scientists to research. Thank you, Isabel. So I brought to you because we were supposed to make a small meditation. We are still recording, but I think it's okay because a lot of interesting comments, right, Fabrizio, we made. And I just wanted to, we're not exactly doing meditation, but just for us to go back to this small moment of silence, inner silence. When we talk here, when he talks here, talks about the Christ within that Fabrizio has put in the WhatsApp group once. Remember, Fabrizio? The archetype of the Imago Dei has to do also in Jung's terms to the Christ within. Okay, and spiritual masters such as Paramahansa Yogananda that brought yoga to the West talk a lot about when he talks about the second coming of Christ. He's talking about this, as Joanna, this development of consciousness towards the Christ consciousness, the higher levels of consciousness, cosmic conscious. Jonas talks. So I just wanted to read this a small sentence for you so that we can close the meeting. He asks, "What is life?" Many people have this question: what is life? What a mysterious thing, isn't it? But that's not how you find out. You will discover what life is when you begin to be lived by something else, to be lived by that which is the universe, to be lived by that which is the cosmos, to be lived by that which is also called Christ. So, to the extent that we are faithful to this, to the extent that we decide and persist that this is which comes from another region, manages to approach and live within us. That is, it manages to begin to live within us. And when this, which is another region of consciousness, begins to live within us, then our true life begins. Or rather, we begin to live something that belongs to the whole. We begin to live something that is more real. Wanted to bring that to you. Many thanks for being here tonight with us and to all your contributions. And I give to Fabrizio to closing remarks.
Thank you, Anahy. So just a quick
Sorry.
announcement.
Sorry, Fabrizio. There's just something that I have here that is from the Teilhard de Chardin, Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. He talks about the cosmic Christ, and one of the things he said that he understands the incarnation as bringing the historical Christ into the material world and through evolution, leading all the creation towards perfection in the Omega point, which is more or less what you were saying, the cosmic Christ that become part of all of us and our own growth. It's interesting, isn't it?
Thank you,
Sorry,
Sylvia.
Fabrizio.
So that's okay. Just a quick one. We have done some changes in our calendar. So we are going to meet up next Sunday because on the 10th is Mother's Day. So we're gonna swap our meeting from at the 10th of May, and instead we're gonna do on the 3rd of May, which is next Sunday. I will put that on a WhatsApp to remind everyone. So yeah, I think that's all from me. Thanks for being with us. I will stop the recording now and have a nice evening, everyone.